I think we need to have a really honest talk about our bodies. It's not always easy to love what we see in the mirror, is it? We're told that weight gain and belly fat are just part of the deal and that we should fight tooth and nail to get back to our premenopause shape. But do we really have to feel that way? What if we could learn to embrace and even celebrate our menopause body just as it is? Stick around because today we're diving deep into this topic with a special guest who has some incredible insights to share. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get more real insights. I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, Dr. Lisa Folden. Lisa is a licensed physical therapist, certified lifestyle coach, and the owner of healthyphit Physical Therapy and Wellness in Charlotte, North Carolina. With years of experience in the health and wellness industry, Lisa has dedicated her career to helping women of all sizes feel strong, confident, and empowered in their bodies. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Lisa Folden to the show. Hi, Lisa. I'm so happy to have you join me today. And I just have to say, I really love that your career has been focused on helping people realize that they need to appreciate their bodies and not obsess over what they see on the scale. But
Yeah,
I almost feel that there's a little bit of a personal story behind this and
yeah.
why you decided to go down this path. Would you like to share it with us today?
Yes. Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk with you as well. Yeah, it was definitely inspired by a personal story. I was in the medical field. I was always into fitness and health and wellness. Um, Probably just by birthright. My dad was a fitness competitor, so I grew up around the gym, and so I always had an interest in that. But going a very traditional path with that. Led me to a place where I think a lot of people end up, especially women who happen to have children, because of the massive ways in which our body changes, really just through life, but especially when we carry children. And so I just remember feeling bad about my body most of my life. And coming to that realization was kind of scary because I didn't realize it until I got into this work. But I probably spent from the ages of 14 to 37, really, really, really dissatisfied with my body, comparing it to other people, doing any diet, any detox, any fat burner pill, anything you could think of. I was trying it and just never being satisfied. And then the progression to that was like having my last child. I finished nursing him and I started putting on weight. And I just got so scared. So I started being very extreme in my behaviors, working out with no breaks, like 7 days a week, eating food from portion containers, just severely under eating and
Mhm.
over exercising. Lost a little bit of weight and of course still wasn't happy because you never get to happy with your body when you're doing it from that perspective,
Right.
FYI. But I settled my schedule a little bit because it was just overwhelming and unsustainable to work out 7 days a week, forever. So I started doing 5 days a week and just kind of being mindful with air quotes in my portions. And within 3 months, I gained back everything I lost plus some. And I felt so defeated and so sad and so confused. I was trying to create a weight loss program to sell to people, and I couldn't figure out how to lose weight. So I stumbled, and I feel like God, the universe, whoever you prescribe to, put this book in my somewhere on my news feed, my social media feed. But it was the Health at Every Size book by Dr. Bacon, and that is where it took off. Then I kept reading and kept learning, and I realized like, oh, I've been trying to beat my body into submission and make it a certain size and shape and weight, and that's not how our bodies work. And in the process, I've hurt myself. I've probably made myself less healthy, and then I've created more issues with my body image and disliking my body. Whereas that effort that I put, because I was a very good dieter, to be very clear, I could be a rule follower. I can be very, very overly disciplined. I have a very much type A personality, but all of that energy I was putting toward dieting, I could have been putting toward making peace with and loving and respecting my body, and the results would have been far more sustainable and far farther reaching. So I made that shift probably between 2019 and 2020. And it's been a game changer for my life. And so when I made the shift, when I understood what I've been doing and what I thought all this time was wrong, I was like, well, I can't live like this anymore and I can't work with clients like this anymore. So that's when I transitioned my entire practice and how I approached health, wellness, fitness and all the
Hmm.
things.
Well, our bodies don't necessarily appreciate when we treat them that way.
They do not.
They do not. And so yeah, as you've worked with women of all shapes and sizes, and
Mhm,
but I'm sure that as women age, and
mhm,
I know that your focus isn't necessarily on women in menopause, but
mhm,
women in menopause struggle through so much. And I feel that you've probably heard from some of us in your practice. What are
mhm.
some common complaints or themes that you've heard from women as they age?
Yeah, that's a big one. The primary thing I hear from women who are, perimenopausal and menopausal, are concerns about weight gain. They're like, I'm
Mhm.
gaining weight. Specifically talking about belly fat. Some of them have complained about, just feeling, like they have less energy, definitely more aches and pains than, they remember previously. And, some of these things are just a part of, what naturally happens to us as we transition and go through all these things. And we do, I live in the United States, so unfortunately live in a country where like women's concerns and health stuff is just not at the forefront of like research and money. And so people don't necessarily have a great understanding of what's happening in our bodies. And I think it turns into like this fight. Like I'm
Mm.
fighting my body again, even if it's not like the diet and exercise, fight. It's like I'm fighting my body, to get it to like just behave normally, So it's I haven't gotten to the menopausal stage yet, but I'm definitely perimenopausal and I am noticing some of the slight differences. But the funny story is 10 years ago, I never heard of perimenopausal.
Mm.
So it's like at least there's a little bit more information out there to sort of guide us. But yes, I have a lot of women in that stage complaining about weight and struggling because, every time our bodies change, and inevitably they will for our whole lives, right? Every time
Mhm.
our bodies change, there's a new level of like, okay, a little bit of anxiety. How do I adjust to this? How do I deal with this? And it can be very scary for sure. But, the more comfortable you get with accepting the fact that your body will change, the less of a gut punch it feels like as
Mhm.
it changes for sure.
Is there anything that, as a physical therapist, is there anything that you do differently when women come to you with those types of concerns?
Yeah, well, in general, my practice is very much about size inclusivity, weight
Mhm.
inclusivity. We are very anti-fat bias, so it's very much like the space is going to be there for you, no matter what size you are, no matter what you're going through, what age or stage. But I think the biggest thing is I spend a lot more time with those clients addressing, even if they're a physical therapy client, because I provide
Mhm.
physical therapy and then I also do coaching. But a lot of times, even if they're there for physical therapy, I'm going to be providing a little bit more coaching around the body image stuff. We're going to be talking through that a bit more because it's hard I tell people this all the time, whenever we're trying to get stronger or get in shape, if you will, for better, terms, um, there's always a level of discomfort associated with making these physical changes, doing these things differently when we are doing it from a place of like disgust or from a place of like, I hate the way I look, or even I hate the way I feel. So sometimes repositioning the motivation to be about like, oh, I care about my body. I really love my body. I really want this to be a more enjoyable experience in my body. I want to feel better in my body, as opposed to it being all negative. So a lot of times with my clients who are struggling to accept their bodies and they're going through menopause, we spend more time on body image and sort of preparing for and adjusting to the changes that we're naturally experiencing. But for women, most women who are going through menopause, I feel like, and if I could speak generationally, I feel like there's always been a strong focus on like cardiovascular exercise, which is always good for everyone, right? But I actually think that women who are in the menopausal years, benefit far more from strength training. I think it's just better for our bodies, for our hormones, definitely better for our muscles and our bones when we spend time building our strength up as opposed to just working, our cardiovascular system with walking and running and things like that. So that is usually where the bigger shift is in focusing on the body image stuff, doing some of the mindset work, and then redirecting our attention to strength training work to help with injury prevention, because naturally we lose bone density. That kind of comes, simultaneously with
Hmm.
menopause. And then that puts us in a position where we're more prone to break bones, injure ourselves, which decreases our quality of life. So a big, heavy focus on, being mindful of our bones and joints, doing a lot of strength training, and then addressing the body image stuff.
I'm glad you brought up the strength training because I have been reading a lot about that, and it completely shifts what I've always believed, that
Yeah.
I need to be more, like you said, cardio, incorporate more of that into my life. But just, recently, this past year, I've come to realize that it's really the strength training that's going to
Yeah.
get me through the next, part of my life.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It makes a big difference in our ability. I mean, you think about just strength, right? Being able to do things as we get
Hmm.
older. But because naturally our muscle mass decreases, that comes with menopause as well. We start to lose muscle mass, I think, as early as in our mid 30s. And so, trying to maintain that whatever we can and continue to build upon that, it makes everything that we do easier. And I'm talking about, yeah, working out, exercising, but I'm talking about getting in and out of bed, getting down to the floor and getting back up, housework, things that we very much are used to doing and maybe don't give it a second thought. But as we age, those activities become more difficult because our bones and muscles are just, in some ways lessening or decreasing their resistance. So super important that we focus in on that strength training piece.
How do you deal with people that you work with? Because I know one of my biggest problems is that I get very impatient and I'm
Mhm.
thinking, okay, if I'm going to start whatever it is that's going to be good for me, maybe it's a new workout or maybe it's more mindful eating. You expect overnight success, right? You're like, I
Mhm.
want this to happen. Isn't
Yeah.
this supposed to happen in the next 5 days? I've been really good. And
Right.
it doesn't. How do
No.
you deal with it, when we're acting up?
Well, first of all, I express a lot of empathy because I am not super patient. People tell me, like, oh, you seem so patient. And I think it's just, beautiful that they see me that way. But I am not a very patient person. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, I stopped praying for patience because I realized I was just going to be confronted with more scenarios where I needed to use my patience. So I don't want it anymore. Whatever. We're just going to keep moving. So lots of empathy because I understand how it feels when we make shifts in our behaviors and we're waiting on those instant results and they don't come. A lot of it is just reminding people that this is a long game and there is no destination. This is a journey forever. It's hard because mainstream diet and fitness culture teach us that you're going to start this program on Monday and you're
Mhm.
going to do it for 30 days. And on day 31, you're going to look like this. This is going to be better. And making all these false promises. And we both know that that is not what happens ever for most people. And then if you do see big changes, they're unsustainable for most people. So I like to just remind people that we're not on a quick fix, journey. We're
Mhm.
not like trying to get from A to B. We don't do before and after photos. We don't, because none of that stuff actually matters. What we focus on is the journey, the day to day, the giving ourselves grace, the being patient with ourselves, the being supportive and kind to ourselves. Because we're really mean to ourselves when we're trying to meet a goal. And we believe that we have full control over every health condition, over our weight, our size, our shape, the menopause. Like we think we have control over these things, and we don't. We don't have as much control as we have been taught to believe that we do. So some things are just going to happen, and we're going to have to figure out how to roll with them. So I work with my clients a lot about preparing them for the fact that this is a journey and there's no end. There's no end destination. We're just going to keep going. We're going to keep pushing forward, and we're just going to try to put our best foot forward, and we're going to have compassion and grace for ourselves when we don't. And then we're going to accept and recognize we don't have control over everything, because giving up that sense of control is really the first step toward gaining the freedom that I believe a lot of people, especially women, as we're getting older, need to hold on to. I know I was very like I said, very type A, very much like everything has to be perfect. If I can do this, and it was this constant state of like trying to be perfect and trying to make sure everything turned out perfectly. And all that does is create stress in your body, which is horrible for your health. So
Yes.
making adjustments to understand that, a big part of improving your health and wellness is calming your anxieties, relaxing your nervous system, getting you to a point where you can just breathe and let go of some of the tension and stress in your body. And that can and always does positively, in fact, impact your physical health. So it's an unlearning and a relearning process for people who want a quick result.
Yes, yes. And I'm so glad you said that because let's talk about that connection for a minute because I think you speak a lot about the mind and body connection, and I really think that's such an important point to make because women feel, especially at this time in our lives, a great disconnection
Yeah.
from our bodies. And how do we pull that all together?
Yeah, it's so weird because, sometimes when I say mind body connection, people are like, well, duh. I mean, we're all connected. And it is a duh. But I think many of us spend many years living outside of our bodies because we're not taught to tune in or check in with ourselves. So much life is happening around us. And specifically, what I see with women, especially at the stages of like peri and menopause, women have a tendency culturally to devote a good portion of their life's energy to other people outside of themselves. And so there is no time or space for checking in and tuning into what's happening here. It's like, oh, what do you need? What does he need? And then we come back. And then again, mainstream diet and fitness culture supports that theory. You're going to eat this on this time with this in this amount, and then do this workout. And there's no like checking in. How does your body feel? Are you hungry? Are you full? Like all of the things. So I think we grow very used to operating outside of our body. And what I mean by that is doing the things robotically that are required for us to function and live and for our whole world to function, if we're being honest, right? We're doing all the things and never saying like, does that serve me? Does that feel good? Is that so it's really thinking about and hearing the signals from our body and creating a better cohesion between the two so that we're making good decisions. And so I always tell people, if you're wondering or you're curious as to whether you have a good mind body connection, ask yourself a few questions. First of all, do you have a tendency of spending like an entire workday or even 5, 6, 7, 8 hours without using the restroom? You'd be surprised at how many people I know, unless it's like an urgent issue, will look up and be like, "Oh, I haven't gone to the bathroom." And I've had to go, but I was finishing something and just
Yes,
forgot
yes.
about it. You know what I mean?
Just one
So
more
I
minute.
just one more minute. So just like tuning out to those body signals. Also, if you can go a very significant amount of time without eating, and then when you realize you're hungry, you're like ravenous, you're hangry, you're like, but you haven't felt a subtle signal at all throughout the day, like you should eat. Hey, hey, because to be clear, the body is always communicating. It's just that we don't always listen. So learning how to tune in requires you to dig into yourself, to put yourself first in a lot of cases and ask yourself what you need. And sometimes it looks like a very silly conversation with yourself, but it's like, hey, Lisa, how are you feeling today? What do you need today? Are
Mhm.
you hungry? Did you get enough sleep last night? Are you stressed about something? Are you sore? As a physical therapist, the pain thing, when I am trying to dig and get information about a person's symptoms in their bodies, you would be shocked at how many people are like, yeah, I don't know exactly when that started. I don't really know what it really feels like. I don't know it because we just live outside of our bodies to get stuff
Mhm.
done and we forget to check in. So it's a really important concept again to relearn because we come into this world very in tune with our bodies, but the conditioning over time pulls us away from it. So coming back home to yourself and recognizing what you need, when you need it, how much of it you need, and being able to give it to yourself. That is a huge learning curve, but that work is really worthy work because it gets you back into a space where you're taking good care of yourself. And again, for some people, when they think about health and taking care of themselves, they instantly go to like what they eat and how they move. And those are small parts of the pie, but there's so much more to that, like addressing our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual self. Like, what would be good for me today? What would feel good? I'm feeling lonely, or I feel like I need some connection. Maybe I need to call one of my good friends. Maybe we need to plan a lunch date. Or I have a good friend. I do what we call porch chills, where I go to her house. She has all these beautiful plants on her porch, and we sit on her porch and eat snacks and just talk. And it is so soul satisfying. You know what I mean? So thinking
Yes.
outside of just like what I eat and what I drink and how I move, but how I'm engaging in the world and how I'm pouring back into myself. But it's a process. I won't lie.
Oh, that's really, I really like that because we don't ask ourselves that question often enough. Like, how am I feeling? And you're right. It not just food or
Right.
activity, but what am I searching for? What's going to make me feel better as a person today? Oh,
Yeah.
I love. What did you call it? Porch
A
talk.
porch chill.
Porch chill.
Just sit on the porch, chill out, have some snacks and talk. And it's good conversation, good company, good food, and just it's just a soul satisfying experience for me. So that's one of my
Right?
little things. Yeah.
And how simple, because it doesn't take a lot. You grab a little bag of almonds
Yeah.
or whatever, iced tea, and go and have just a nice,
Anything. You know, our
yes.
world is so capitalistic, and even the term self care has just become this thing where you need to be very rich and you need to be able to travel by private jet to a private island and live it up and have these pamper experience.
Hmm.
That's cool if you can afford that and that feels good to you. But self care is really the day to day stuff, like the everyday. Self care is 5 deep breaths because I'm feeling a little anxious or stressed, or warm tea in the morning because it just feels good, or having a porch chill, or calling a friend. Like, self-care is very accessible when we really dig deep into what we need. What we need usually doesn't cost much money, if any. So
No, and it's just making that little bit of time for yourself throughout the day. And we're not
yeah.
talking, like you said, a beach vacation. It just could be maybe you need to get up from your desk or
Yeah.
go for a walk around the block. You need a
Yeah.
little something.
A little something for yourself every single day. Yep.
Yes. I know that you're a big believer in the health at every size approach,
Mhm.
and I read a little bit about it, and I think I kind of understand that. But could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so health at every size. It's to get, detail. There's some principles that sort of align with the thought process behind it. You can go to ASDA's website. That's the Association for Size, Diversity, and Health. So their website is ASDAH.org. They have great information to understand fully what the principles look like. But health at every size is essentially a framework and a movement that we want to incorporate into really all areas of our lives. We think about healthcare, fitness, and beyond. But it's this understanding that you can't look at a person's body and make a determination about how healthy they are. And that you shouldn't want to do that because it's unfair and it's often not accurate. So, and typically we're talking about people, we are centering in the health at every size movement, we're centering people who are the most marginalized. So we're talking about people who live in larger bodies, who may
Mhm.
have other identifiers that make them more marginalized, such as race, gender, things of that nature, sexual orientation. And so these people are often seen in society as problematic or as unhealthy or as uneducated or as all these negative things. And we don't actually know that to be true. So it's just not okay to treat people that way. So health at every size is about recognizing that each person has the right to pursue or to not pursue health on their own terms, but every person should have access to sufficient and adequate medical care despite the size of their bodies or any of their presentation. So, how I sort of uphold health at every size as a physical therapist is I ensure that my space is accommodating for all body types. So, I have chairs that are wide without armrests so that someone in a larger body can sit there and be comfortable. I have blood pressure cuffs that will go very wide and wrap around larger arms so that I get accurate blood pressure readings. Because if not, I can misdiagnose someone. I don't diagnose, but if I were if I were their medical doctor, they could be misdiagnosed with hypertension. So providing equipment that meets the needs for people, not making assumptions about people. So if I'm working with a client in a larger body and they're telling me that they're having a lot of back pain, but they say I'm working out 3 or 4 days a week, it's not my right or I should not as a health provider make an assumption that they're lying. I should not go in and say, hey, if you just lost weight, that would help fix this and that, because one, it's not true. It's not proven with research. And for two, if you don't even know what your client's habits are, their eating habits, their movement habits, how they're managing their stress, and all the other things that contribute to a person's health, then you are doing harm, really, and that's something medical providers shouldn't be doing. And you're also missing an opportunity to connect with the client and understand what their real issues are, to see if you can support them and help them in some way. So, health at every size is really just about treating people fairly and equitably, and offering support that they need, and not um, and choosing to listen to them and see them and hear them, as opposed to making assumptions and going from there. And so there's lots of movements within health at every size. One of them is to get rid of the BMI, because it is a pointless measure that was created in the 1800s based on the bodies of European men in that time frame. And it has no bearing on our health and our status now, but we utilize it for financial reimbursement. We've created a disease, we've pathologized body size, and so now there can be reimbursements and money, for treatments to get rid of body weight. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole nother soapbox I can get on, but health at every size is very dear to my heart, and it gets a bad rep because people were like, oh, you can't be healthy at every size. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that you can experience health in my body. Well, there can be a range of sizes that a person can or cannot be healthy in, and nobody can look at me and make that determination. So it's just about respecting people's autonomy, and not giving them this one size fits all, like, oh, here, fix this, lose weight, be this size, get to this BMI, and you'll be good. And it's just not true. So, yeah.
Well, I really love the thoughts behind that approach, because there's nothing worse than someone who's seeking help and going to a doctor or a physical therapist or whomever, and running into that wall where things aren't working out and they're made to feel uncomfortable before they've even sort of gotten through the door.
Yeah, yeah. And it's very problematic. Like I said, it's doing harm. It's making people feel, like I said earlier, we don't have full control over our health status. We don't have full control over our weight, not without necessarily engaging in disordered behaviors. And a large portion of the people I treat are in eating disorder recovery, and/or existing in larger bodies as well. So it's really important that we think through what we're suggesting and recommending for clients. We can have this debate about, I always tell people, like, I used to tell my clients, well, yeah, maybe weight loss will help your knee pain. But when we dig into the research, there's nothing to support that. But you may believe, hey, when I lost weight, my knee pain went away. That's absolutely fine. And we can have that difference in perspective or opinion. But the reality is, when we prescribe weight loss and we say, just lose weight and it'll help this, what we're doing is prescribing a treatment modality that's less than 2% successful, meaning less than 2% of people who would attempt intentional weight loss actually lose weight and keep it off beyond 1 to 3 years. And they don't have a lot of data beyond that 3-year point, because the vast majority of people who pursue intentional weight loss gain all or more of the weight back. And then they end up with cardiovascular issues related to that yo-yoing, that up and weight, down and weight, up and weight, down and weight. So if you're a medical provider and you're just telling your clients, well, lose weight and it'll get better, even if it were true, like even if that was the truth, you'll lose weight and feel better, it's such a statistically insignificant amount of people who that experience that. It's like you're doing a disservice. So give them other options. What would you say for a small bodied person with this complaint? Give larger bodied people those same treatment options, as opposed to just blaming it on the weight. We call that lazy medicine. So,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I like that. It's funny you say those things, because there have been so many women that I've talked to in the community who are experiencing like a wide range of issues,
Mhm.
aches and pains or
Sure.
high blood pressure or weight gain. And the doctor makes it sound as simple as, oh, if you only lost some of these pounds, you'd be so much better off. And it feels sometimes, look, I want to say like I don't know that. Like if it were that easy, I think that would have
Right.
already happened.
That is probably the most accurate rebuttal because you're right. If diet and weight loss were the cure all for all of our health symptoms and it were that easy, everybody would just have to go on. Maybe you try a couple, but everybody would just have to find the one diet, go on it for a month, a day, whatever, 6 months, and then everybody would be the size they want and all of their health issues would resolve and we'd be fine. But that diets
Yeah.
diets don't work because they were created to their profit system is built onto the fact that people come back over and over and over again because what we do is we place the blame on the consumer, like, oh well, you were doing so good but then you just fell off. Well, it's like, well, because this is unsustainable, because you want me to eat 1,200 calories a day and that's what a toddler requires, and that's just enough to keep my brain going but not to sustain me for working out or thinking
Mm.
for the rest of the day. So all of these like lifestyle programs, diets, modifications are unsustainable. So when people start to see some results and then, they either back up a little bit or they stop the diet and they gain the weight and they're like, "Oh, well, you got to come back." So essentially what you're saying is people should be dieting for the rest of their lives. And then when we look at the research on that, how unhealthy that is and how a lot of times the people that are successful in maintaining the weight loss are severely under eating for their body. So now we're dealing with nutrition deficits and other issues. So there's a flip side to this diet prescription that is really having negative effects on people's health long term, even if in the interim they think they have the body size that they want. It's not actually panning out the way we want it. So it doesn't
Right.
it's not in your control and in your power the way that they will make you think it is when we talk about weight stuff.
Well, and I think the other part of that too is that if you're already feeling like stress and anxiety over how you look and how you feel, and then you sort of have that added pressure that I need to lose X many pounds, otherwise, whatever terrible thing you've told
Yeah.
yourself is going to happen, it's a horrible spot to be in.
Listen, stress kills more people than weight ever will. I
Mm.
stand by that. Adding stress to your life around counting calories and macros and, you know, only working out in this way that I remember when I was, at the peak of what I would call my disordered behaviors, I spent my entire days thinking about what was I going to eat and how was I going to move and was it going to be enough calories, enough workout to burn this amount of It is exhausting. And I'm a mom of 3 kids at this time, small kids, and trying to run a business and be a wife. It was entirely too much. My eyes were sunken in and my hair was brittle. I have like really full, thick hair. It was brittle. My eyes were sunken in, but my waist was very small. So was it worth it? No, it never was worth it. But, again.
Right? But the things that, women do to themselves, you spend years trying to control your weight and the way that you look. But really it's coming to terms to love and accept who you are. And, I heard this before and I've used it a couple of times, but it sounds weird saying your menopause body. Like I have to come
Yeah.
to terms with this and love this part of my life that I'm in right now.
Yeah, and sometimes love is an extreme for people, especially if you've existed in a larger body and you've kind of dealt with all the weight stigma and stuff from society.
Mhm.
Love might not be super duper achievable, and that's okay. But we can get to respect.
Mm.
I'm okay with that. I don't necessarily think we have to be body positive, but we can be body neutral. We can feel like, you know what? I don't wake up in the morning and just want to stare at this body all day because I think it's the most stunning thing I've ever seen. But I do wake up and feel like, you know what? My body has carried me. My body's protected me. My body helped me through a global pandemic where we lost many people. My body carried 3 children into this world successfully. I can respect and treat this body well because it deserves that. even if I'm not madly in love with it. Now, if I get to being madly in love with it, that's a bonus. That's the cherry on top, and it's beautiful, but it's not a requirement. We can just, learn to respect ourselves and like ourselves and be kind to ourselves and treat ourselves like we would treat the childlike version of ourselves, or like we treat our best friend, as opposed to being so mean and saying such bad. We say really horrible things to ourselves, especially around our bodies. And so, yeah, learning to accept and respect our menopause
Mm.
body is really important, and everybody that comes before and after that, because it's ever changing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, one of the things is as we age and we move a little bit further down the road, um, I think sometimes, and I'm sure you could speak to this, that a lot of our body image issues that maybe we had when we were younger tend to resurface when we go through new struggles. Is that
Mhm.
something that you find to be true?
Yeah, because we experienced some things earlier on, which is funny because I was doing a talk this weekend to young girls about body image, and I was saying it's so weird how after some time being on this cycle of dieting and restricting and all this, I look back, and at some point, like in maybe your 30s or 40s, you look back and you're like, your new body goals become what you look like in your teens and 20s, right? But then you ask yourself the tough question, was I actually okay with my body then? And if you answer honestly, most of us are like, nope, I didn't like my body then. So it's never been about the size of your body. It's been about how you perceived your body and what you thought it meant for your value or your worth. So yeah, some of those same things will resurface, or different aspects of the same issue will resurface. Because we go through these, ebbs and flows. It's up and down, and then our bodies change all the time. So it's almost like some people's bodies change less, right? You get to sort of a like, this is my norm. But when even the smallest change, it's like, wait, what's going on? And again, that desire to like control kicks in, and we get all worked up. But that stress will, impair you more than changing weight or having more belly fat will. But I always tell people, when we're especially as we're aging, and I've had clients in their 70s that still want to lose weight, to be very clear. It's not something that goes away. And that face you made is exactly how I feel inside. Is like, man, do I want to be 70 still thinking about this stuff? Like,
Right?
wow,
Yeah.
wow, it's so scary. But I try to tell people all the time, your headstone is not going to say she stayed thin her whole life. She had a small waist. She was really tiny. She was her college weight, because nobody cares, and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't speak to the value and worth you bring to this earth. So it's refocusing on the things that actually matter, as opposed to the more superficial stuff that doesn't impact your life in any
Mhm.
significant way, or other people's. But to your original question, yes, I see things kind of resurface, and maybe things that we had maybe gotten comfortable with because our body shifts a little bit. Now we're not comfortable anymore. So it's like what do I do now?
Right.
How do I fix it
Yes.
now? So yeah, that definitely comes up.
You're like, oh, this feels really familiar.
Very familiar. I remember being here before. Here we go again, right?
um, well, I was doing a deep dive on some of your social media, and you had a YouTube channel a few years ago,
Yeah.
and there was a video on there that really struck me, and I'm not even sure if you remember it, but when I
Yeah.
saw it, I was like, ugh. Um, and it was how to appropriately accept a compliment. And I
Oh yeah.
thought, wow,
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've done it myself or I've given a genuine compliment to somebody, and it always comes back with, oh, yeah, I just threw this together, or I need a haircut, or I think I've got gray hair. Why do we do that to ourselves?
Mhm. We are conditioned to self-sabotage. And I do remember that video because I think about it constantly, because it's, even though I teach this stuff, every time I'm talking to myself because I need the reminders and the reinforcement, because I live in this world, and this world is very, I think it teaches us, it conditions us to be unkind to ourselves. So we can, show kindness and compassion and grace to other people, but to us, oh no, 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 no.
No.
Women apologize so much for things that don't require an apology, for things that have nothing to do with them. They have no control over. We apologize for our bodies, the way we look, like so many things. We apologize for existing, really.
Yes.
And that is the conditioning. And if you want to go back to the roots, patriarchy, white supremacy, all the things that try to keep us down, capitalism, diet culture, make us feel bad about ourselves, right? I just think that, like, internationally, if you keep women focused on the way they look, they can't focus on making this world better. And I think that we're very well equipped to do that. So keep our attention elsewhere, right? And then we don't have to worry about them. But it's just this phenomenon of not being able to just say, "Oh, you look really nice today. Thank you." It's such a practice. What we want to do is, because we don't want to seem conceited or stuck up, which is just ridiculous. We, instead of taking the compliment and really showing our gratitude for it, we're just like, "Oh no, this old thing. Oh no. Oh my gosh. Or no, you look good." You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
That's one thing women really struggle with, taking compliment. And the other one is like bonding over or body shaming. So it might be like, "Oh, my thighs are disgusting." And your girlfriend's like, "No, your thighs are fine. My stomach is awful." It's like, what? What are we doing? It's so negative. But again, our world conditions us to never be satisfied and to
Yes.
always think less of ourselves and to constantly apologize for ourselves and never be able to graciously and happily take a compliment. It's just always like, "Oh no, don't look at me." But it's deep rooted. It's the way we've been conditioned, and it is something, again, we have to unlearn and relearn. So yeah, I always practice. I give a lot of compliments, and I receive them way better than I used to, because
Yes.
it was always something before.
Well,
Deflect.
yes, yes. Someone, I can't remember who, but once told me that it's comparative suffering.
Yeah.
This is happening to me, but no, wait, I've got something better than that,
I can top that.
Yes.
That I've not heard that term. I like that. I'm going to use that, comparative suffering. Yep.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
It sums up a lot when you think about it.
Mhm.
As we age and in midlife, we find ourselves with like so many different roles, right?
Yeah.
Moms and caregivers and changes in our career and things like that. It's a lot. And we mentioned it a little bit before, and we talked about self-care and what that
Yeah.
looks like. How can we approach body positivity and prioritize our well-being at the same time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, figuring out how to take good care of ourselves and still respect and accept our bodies at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, I think for a lot of people it's semantics and always maybe not understanding. Again, I typically say body neutrality, but not necessarily understanding that acceptance of oneself and respect for oneself does not negate wanting to be healthy, wanting to take good care of ourselves. You know what I mean? So they can coexist. More than one thing can be true. I can exist and live in this body that I have today, but also recognize, like, "Oh, you know what? My cholesterol was getting up. And so I'm going to make some adjustments to, some of the ingredients I use, or I'm going to maybe, increase my workouts by 20 minutes a week or something." Like, you can still adjust your lifestyle, focus on your health, and still respect and accept your body. The difference and the shift when we come to this new mentality is that our exercise, our food, our activities are not motivated by making our body look differently. That's no longer the new motivation is doing what we can, the things that are within our control, to help our bodies perform better, feel better, and have some longevity. That's it. But it doesn't mean that you have to. People think you have to hate yourself to to a better, healthier body, or exercise is supposed to be punishment. You're supposed to hate it, and you're supposed to sweat, a billion pounds of sweat, and you're just supposed to be sad and exhausted and ready to pass out after. I'm not committing to anything like that, because it sounds miserable, and I used to
Right?
do it.
Yeah.
But it sounds miserable, and also specific to the menopausal woman, middle-aged woman, the aging woman and man, anytime we are engaging in activity that's like extremely uh oppressive to our bodies, like where there's a lot of like go go go, pushing you to the edge of your energy stores, that is actually destructive to our bodies. That's like free radical crazy time inside of our bodies. That's stress to our bodies. That is um increasing the rate of aging to our bodies. So we don't even benefit from that in the way that, people on television might tell you. Like
Mhm.
you really benefit from more moderate activities, you know what I mean, where maybe you
Yes.
do get a little sweat but more consistent with the movement, as opposed to like, let me run myself into the ground. So just recognizing that you can coexist. The two things can coexist. I can respect and appreciate and accept what my body looks like, and I can still do things that increase its health, in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I love where we've gone with this conversation. And I think my community is really going to get a lot out of meeting you. So, as we wrap this up, where can they find you? Like, what's next for Dr. Lisa Folden, and what is going on?
Yeah, so thank you. I'm so glad to connect with your community, and I do hope, there's more opportunities for us to connect and touch base. I live on Instagram, so you can follow me there. It's healthy fit. Fit is spelled PHIT. That's my website as well, healthyphit.com. And I'm on all the social channels, but I'm just active on
Mhm.
Instagram, so that's the easiest place to connect. But you can always connect through my website. I have a body image journal. It's called the Body Respect Journal, with the pink cover on Amazon. People can purchase that. It's a affirmational journal. So every day there's an
Oh,
affirmation and a space for you to write and think through what that affirmation looks like. And it's really just about you learning to accept and respect and take good care of your body, whether you're in love with the way it looks or not. So those are the easiest ways. And I offer physical therapy services to people in North and South Carolina, in person and virtual. And then I do coaching around body image, movement, and just general health. And that's virtual all over the world. So the easiest ways to work with me or connect with me.
you are a busy woman, and you're a mom, and you're running a business. So,
Yeah.
yes, somewhere in there, we're going to find a way to get in touch with you. And that sounds
Please.
wonderful.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you for being here today. And I really appreciate the time.
Same. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Real Insights. If you want to hear more about how other women learn to love their menopause bodies, order your copy of Empart, Real Stories, Real Wisdom, Real Menopause on Amazon today. And don't forget to join the conversation at joinempart.com. Until next time, remember that menopause is a journey, but you're not alone.